Governance Committee meeting for the Haggensburg Bridge and Port Authority. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 5:06. First business item is discussion of remote attendance at meetings. So I'm not sure if we want to hear from Jennifer.
Yeah, you have Jennifer do an overview.
Jennifer first, yeah.
Jen, go ahead.
Sure.
Tony.
So I circulated around some information probably in August, I think, with respect to the requirements if you're going to allow remote participation in meetings. And if you need to count a member to reach quorum, then that member can attend remotely, but the location has to be published and it has to be open to the public. Not that I expect people would show up at your homes or your offices, but that's always a possibility. It can certainly happen. So something to keep in mind there. It's a risk you take, but in order to encourage participation, and I apologize for that sound in the background, my dogs are deciding to kill each other right now. Great timing. So anyway, in order to encourage participation in board meetings, the governor and the legislature have extended the legislation to allow remote participation, but only under certain circumstances. The goal is always to have people attend in person, right? And so rather than the way it was during COVID, when it was, you could attend remotely for any reason and you could keep your camera off and things like that, you can't do that anymore. You can't just phone call in. It has to be video. It has to be live streamed. Your location has to be published. You have to put in the meeting notice that these board members will be attending remotely and here's their location. Unfortunately, you do have to have the members' locations published, even though members of the public are able to attend and participate by signing onto the WebEx, as they always have been, but that's not good enough level of participation for the public. So those board members who need to attend remotely for, unusual reasons, something that came up as opposed to a normal thing. Like I always work, night shift, so I'm never able to attend in person. That's not so much an unusual reason as an always reason, right? But if you have something come up with not feeling well, right? Or unexpected travel, something like that, where you can't be there in person. That's what this is geared towards. So you have had your public hearing, which is required, and then you have to adopt a policy if the board is going to allow remote participation. Then you have to have a policy to say that here's the things that we'll say are acceptable reasons for remote attendance. And there's a common list of enumerated items, and I have sent those reasons to you. And then I think it's important to have a catch-all that says, or as approved by either the chairperson of the board or by the executive director. And if it's one of those reasons, you don't have to publish to say like, sorry, Nicole can't come today because she's got a violent stomach bug, right? You don't have to, it doesn't have to be to that degree. Just, she can't attend. But you put the policy into place by enacting the policy at the next board meeting or whenever the board chooses to do that, and then that becomes a policy going forward.
Okay, so I have a couple questions, just because I had to go through this for the town board, and I guess I'm getting a little bit of conflicting information. So I was under the impression, based on like the local law that we passed, I know the OBPA doesn't have to pass a local law, but on the town board we did pass a local law, and then we also put in our policy. I didn't think that you had to publish the location if you were video conferencing from home if you weren't part of quorum, or if there was a quorum like at the main place. Like I think our policy, I brought it with me, that if a quorum is at like the public, like town hall, and like one or two board members are video conferencing in, we don't have to publicize their location because they're not part of quorum.
That's absolutely correct. The only reason that your location has to be published and open to the public is if you're needed to establish quorum.
Okay.
And then if you are attending remotely, you have to have your camera on the whole time. You have to be identifiable, you know, so you can't sit a mile away and just be a speck on the screen. So the public has to be able to look and see, that's Nicole, that's Tony who's there, and identify who's talking when. So it's okay to shut your camera off temporarily, right? If you have something that comes up that you've got to, you know, not be on screen for. But you have to turn it right back on. And anytime that there's a vote or a discussion that you're a part of, you need to be visible.
Does anyone else have questions or comments? Nicole?
So just wondering about, publishing the locations for a quorum, what is the notice that has to be given on that?
When
How
you
many
do your
days
normal-
notice?
Just when you do your normal meeting notice, you'll include then, you know, here's the date and time of the meeting, the location, here's our WebEx link, which I think you guys have been doing that all along anyway, and then these members will attend remotely, here's their locations.
Okay. Anne Marie, whoever, how many days do we post that ahead of time?
That's 3 days before the meeting.
Okay, so we would just need to make sure that people had confirmed their attendance prior to the 3-day window as far as whether or not we needed to state addresses of the remote attendees.
Yeah, I would need to know that you were attending remotely in advance. So Jennifer, if there is an illness, and then what do we do for that?
So I think if something comes up last minute like that, like an illness, a death in the family, something that you won't know 3 days in advance, right? In that case, I think that you publish your notice as you normally would, and then when you find the information that someone can't attend at the last minute, then publish it on your website, on your message board, things like that. And at the beginning of the meeting, you can announce, Member Jones will not be in attendance in person, but will be attending remotely. Here's the address.
But if they're not attending and we have a quorum and they're too ill to even go online, there's no reason, that's no different than what we do now. Would that be a fair
Correct.
statement?
Correct. Yep.
If someone calls in at the last minute and says, and they have Anne Marie and they say, okay, we're fine. We've got a quorum, you know, we have 6 out of 7 or 5 out of 7. For any, that doesn't change any of that last minute's circumstances, right?
Right. As long as you have a quorum without them, it's no different than if they would have been attending in person. They just won't be there that day.
Right. So when you're talking about illness or disability, something comes up, that's how we just, nothing changes there.
Exactly. Flat tire on the way to the meeting.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I was just saying something like a flat tire on the way to the meeting, right? Where they're not going to be able to make it.
Yeah. Jennifer, should there be a standard form that, you know, we send out electronically to the members and just leave an area where they can explain it, and so that it's kind of a standard thing that for record keeping?
Yeah, I think that would actually be a really good idea so that you can document that you've complied with the statute and with your policy.
And almost, you know, reason why, or, you know, just something that's much, it's not too difficult for the members, you know, they don't, you know, just simplify it so that it's kind of a standard form that, you know, we can record that request in writing.
Yeah, and I think it can be things like travel, illness, other, right? If it's something, if you include that catch-all that says as reasonably approved by the executive director or the chair of the board, I would put that under other, because maybe a member has a a valid personal reason why they can't attend in person, but they don't necessarily want that to be broadcast anywhere
Understood.
or foilable, so then that just becomes other.
Tony,
Yeah,
question?
looking at some of the language in the example or sample policies that were shared with us, it does refer to, it's the chair or the presiding officer of the meeting would determine whether the extraordinary circumstances are present. Although then there is an avenue for somebody to challenge it, but it is the chair that makes the determination if it's extraordinary circumstances or not.
Yeah, and frankly, I expect this legislation to evolve. It's supposedly, you know, permanent legislation allowing for this, but permanent for state legislation purposes means it expires in 2024. I don't think that the renewed version is going to be the same as this is. I think that if the goal is to encourage participation by board members and by the members of the public, then I think that full remote participation is going to achieve that goal, right? Absolutely, you'd rather have everybody in a room together for the collegiality and just getting things done. And but I think that if COVID has shown us anything, it's that people participated more when they could do it online. I am not somebody who ever goes to my town board meetings, but sometimes I would catch the meetings on Zoom because I was interested in what they were talking about, but I couldn't make the time to go in person. But I think people kept up more and participated more. And I think that's a desirable end result.
Well, and it makes progress and moves government along. Perfect example, tonight, this meeting would have been canceled, right? We would not have had a quorum. We wouldn't have been able to take any action or make any recommendations had we not been able to have a conversation this way.
Exactly.
Steve, you said you had a question for me?
Yeah, with what, was there just some items out of the, I'm just trying to think of the end result here. Was there items here that you wanted to cross-reference with what Jennifer put on?
So I didn't see what Jennifer had said previously. I don't know if I just overlooked it. I just brought this because for our viewing, there was nothing particular in here that I'm adamant about putting in. I guess I do like the idea of putting in kind of like a meeting etiquette type thing like we have in the town board, just, you know, watching some of the other public officials meetings over COVID was kind of painful. I mean, Nicole is probably familiar with some of those as well, people washing their dishes and chasing their dogs and all that during the meetings. They got a little crazy at some point, so that's kind of why we put that in first, just to, you know, kind of what we think would be polite if you're doing a video conference, but it's not necessary.
No, I don't.
And
see
unfortunately,
one.
I don't have a copy of what Tony's referencing. All I have are the documents that were sent to us earlier in the week. So I'm not sure what you guys are referring to.
I have to tell you, I just brought Potsdam's, the policy we passed in Potsdam, which if you wanted to reference it, it is on Potsdam, the town's website. But it's essentially pretty much very similar to what Jennifer sent us. We just have a portion that we added that just says remote meeting etiquette for board members, and it's just talking about being on time, you know, sound checking your equipment beforehand, have good lighting, paying attention, silencing background noises, stuff like that, just to make the remote attendance more pleasant.
You have to bear with me for a minute so I can, yeah, I'm on the website, but I don't see.
So there's our local law number 3, and then there's the Potsdam Town Board proposed video conferencing policy, although it was passed now. It was back in
July.
June, July-ish timeframe, July?
July 12th, 2022,
Is it dated on here?
on the back, very back page. You did well.
I think, see, this one also gives like examples. I don't think that's really that necessary either. Like if you're looking at it, it gives like examples of when board members would share their location versus not. I like the idea of keeping it more simple, but
Yeah, I tend to go that way only because it's, I think sometimes when you get too much in there, there's too much room for interpretation. And
Yeah,
you
I
can
agree.
tell by the way we're talking right now that we haven't, everyone doesn't have all the answers. And even as Jennifer alluded to, that in the future, it either could be more concrete or less going forward. So, I like that, but I do see where you're talking about with the, what is it, item D there. I don't see any harm in that, but I guess I have a lot more faith in our board's behavior that I don't need to say, pay attention. But no, but there is some things that, it does need to be said sometimes. So what
I
would you
agree.
like to-
I also think at the determination of the chair, if you had somebody that was constantly having reasons to not be on and they were doing 110 things in the background, I think that the chair would just politely not allow them to attend remotely anymore also. If it's an extenuating circumstance, you wouldn't be able to be, petting your dog and doing your dishes in the background because there'd be a valid reason that you wouldn't be there.
Yeah, and I'm sure both of you had more experience than I have with more remote things than, what we're kind of limited a little bit. So we see, I don't have any issues with it, but how did you want to proceed with this? Did you, do you want us to incorporate some of those items into what Jennifer had?
I'm not like attached to this document at all. I just brought it for ideas for people. We can include nothing that's in here.
Do you have a copy of this right now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What Jen said, yep,
Yeah.
it's right here. I honestly am with you. I agree we should probably go more simple just to keep it easy. And like you said, there's kind of sometimes the less you say, the better type thing. But I don't know, what was everyone thinking about what we should get out of the meeting tonight? Are we crafting the policy tonight to bring to the board meeting, or was this more of a discussion? I'm not. Probably,
I really can't answer that. If you feel we're far enough along where everyone's comfortable with that, Jennifer, would that be something you could give us a draft on that?
Absolutely, yeah.
How about,
And we have to hold a public hearing before it can.
We've already
yeah.
done the public hearing, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I feel comfortable with this, but we gotta, I'm sure, could we do a draft and have something available for the board meeting? Is that?
Yeah.
Rather than an adopted?
Why don't we just go through this point by point, what Jen
Oh,
sent,
okay.
and then just make changes, and then maybe Jen can make note of the changes and then redraft and send
That's
it out to us.
That's good
That's
with
fine
you,
with me.
yeah.
Is that okay with you, Nicole? Proceeding that way?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I guess we'll take a look at number 1, scope. These procedures apply to all meetings of the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority and its committees. I think that's pretty straightforward. I'm fine with that language. Public attendance, except for such meetings or portions of meetings that are legally permitted to be closed to the public shall be permitted to attend any meeting at the publicly noticed physical location for such meeting. At any meeting at which the public is permitted to participate, the public may also attend and participate via video conferencing. Okay. Does anyone want to add anything to that?
I'm good.
Can you just, again, tell me what you're referencing? I'm looking at local law number 3 of the year 2022 that was posted on the Town of Potsdam's Town Board website. But that's not what you just read, so I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be looking at.
I'm referencing something that was sent to us from Jennifer.
I sent it with the
Okay,
agenda.
which one?
The email that was agenda.
It says the subject is remote meeting attendance and the attachments are remote attendance policy examples.
Yep, and there's 4 of them, so which one am I looking at?
I'm not sure.
We're looking at just the email.
Yeah, there was a separate email that, first there was the email with links to different ones to look at, and then there was another email that was like, here's a sample that is nice and clean that maybe you'd want to use.
Anne Marie, did that come from you? Sorry.
If you look at the agenda, it should be the next page after the agenda in the same scan.
Yep, scroll down a little bit, sure thing.
Okay, so I read number 2, Nicole, and we were just asking if you had any input on that, or were you happy with the language?
That's good.
Okay, so number 3, members may attend and participate at meetings remotely via video conferencing, provided that 1, a quorum of the body is present at the publicly noticed physical location for such meeting, or a quorum cannot be constituted without the member participating remotely. Such member's location shall be published and open to the public, and the member submits a request in writing to the executive director explaining in detail the extraordinary circumstance which preclude their in-person attendance. Okay, and then it just mimics the language of the law, and then such request is approved by executive director. I think the question that we were thinking for this one was, is it going to be executive director or chair of the board and or chair of the board? And is it going to be a request in writing? And I don't know if it has to be. Jennifer maybe can answer that.
It doesn't have to be a request in writing, and it can be either or both.
I think we should even take the member submits a request in writing out and just say the member gets approval from either the executive director or the chair of the board.
And do we want to put the prior to 3 days before, just so it's easier for Anne Marie to publish locations if we need that quorum?
I don't know how you guys feel. I want to be careful about the language, because if something does come up last minute, then technically the policy's been violated if it's not 3 days before. I don't know. Or not.
Or you could modify that just to say, or if circumstances prohibit such advance notice as early as practicable.
That's fine with me if everyone else is good with it. So I guess for this, we're just, we're gonna take out how the request is made, and just that it has to be approved by either Steve or Sam.
Or how about if you're chairing
Or the committee chair?
a committee chair, right?
Okay, yeah, no, that's
I mean,
a good
it's
idea.
not just board meetings, it would
Right,
be,
that's true.
so whatever the
Like,
appropriate.
or chair or presiding officer?
Yes,
Yes,
okay. Okay, everyone good with this?
and that would be for 2 and 3, where
Yep.
we cross executive director, well, that would be part, you'd add those onto that, right? For authorization, okay.
Okay, are we ready to move on to 4? I think we're good on 3. Record of remote attendance, the written explanation submitted by the member we'll have to change that now. If approved, shall be made part of the record for such meeting and posted on the authority's webpage for such meeting, provided that it may be redacted or summarized to protect any person's medical information, personal information. Where a vote is taken, it shall be clearly recorded. Okay, I'm not really a fan of any of that wording, to be honest, but I don't know how anyone else feels about that. Especially since we took the written explanation out anyways. I'm not sure how we can.
I'm not either. Jennifer, is it a requirement that the reason is published or that people have access to it? Okay.
Okay, so as long as it's approved, we don't have to publish the reason. What do we have to say? Just that there'll be a.
It has to be noted, right? Does it need to be noted in the minute?
As long as your grandmother doesn't die 4 times, right?
So, so are we just gonna take this whole section out or just like narrow it down to say that the members attending via video conference will be made part of the record for the meeting?
Yeah, let's do that.
Just leave it at that?
Yeah, because that's what's required.
Okay,
So
So, right,
we'll leave it at the
no-
minimum.
that they're attending via video conference, and then any votes, we have to signify that they were voting remotely.
Correct.
Okay, I think we should just kind of leave it at that rather than all of the other stuff, in my opinion. Everyone else okay with this? All right, so
Yes.
powers reserved. The chair of the board of directors reserves the power to waive the in-person requirements for any or all of the meetings of the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority and its committees during a state disaster or local state of emergency declaration. If the chair determines that the circumstances necessitate such declaration would affect or impair the ability of the authority to hold an in-person meeting. That seems reasonable to me. Did we want to change it? Well, I guess that one's okay, just.
That's
leave it
fine.
Chair.
Yeah.
Hopefully we never have to test that one out.
Hopefully not.
Knocking on wood.
So, I mean, that's the end of the document. I didn't know if there's if anyone else had any other thoughts, or Nicole, if you got to glance over Potsdam's and had any, like I said, I'm not emotionally attached to it. I just brought it for reference, but I think that keeping this pretty basic and is acceptable.
Yeah, the only thing that's in the Potsdam one that I really do like is the verbiage at the very beginning about the intent of why we have the policy, or that we're enacting this, is that so that we have that ability to participate in meetings. That intent statement in the public officers law, I like that addition.
Yeah, so I can't put in the public officers law part because that doesn't apply. Because I haven't seen Potsdam's section, but it probably recites 2 certain sections of the law that don't apply to you. But the overall concept, yes. Yes, we can definitely put that.
Okay.
So Jen, the one that she's referencing, this is the language. It just says, the town of Potsdam recognizes the benefits of allowing members of the town's local public bodies to attend meetings using video conferencing technology. The town, on the date, the town board adopted a local law to authorize the use of video conferencing for itself and all committees and subcommittees of the town, which are subject to the New York State Open Meetings Law, Public Officers Law, Article 7, which that's the part that's not us.
Okay,
And then,
so we'll just take out the local law part, right? Because it's a policy and not a local law. But we can use the rest of it.
okay, I'm fine with that too.
Awesome.
Would there be anything that you want video conferencing for itself, the committees and subcommittees, but what about the public? in none of that first one, it doesn't say anything about the public. It's strictly talking about the board.
But the public attendance we've already got on Jennifer.
No, I know, but you're, oh, okay. Okay,
Is there anything that we haven't touched on that we have to have in the policy? Or did we kind of meet all of the requirements?
Yeah, I think you've met everything with a nicely stripped down policy. I don't think that for the purposes of this board and its committees that you need a really complex policy, right? So this captures what's required by the statute and gives you some flexibility with that catch-all provision.
Okay, you guys happy with it? I know it seems pretty simple, but I actually agree that the simpler the better, and then, you know, we can kind of, you know, leave it up to Steve and Sam and,
do you want to, so Jennifer, you'll put that together in a draft and or do we want it for the board meeting?
Tuesday.
Next Tuesday?
Oh.
Today.
yeah.
Yeah, so I can put it together for you and get it out tomorrow so you can circulate it amongst the group. And if you guys want to, Anne Marie, I'll send it to you. And then if you can just send a group email with everybody. And then if people just say, yeah, this is what we discussed and what we agreed on in governance, then you'll be able to go to the board meeting and say, this is what the governance committee agreed on. I think we've all agreed conceptually and what you guys have agreed conceptually on what it should be.
Well, we'll wait when it comes around, and then if you've got a different thought on that or how you want to proceed, it you know, doesn't have to happen, but if you want to put it on, you know, the timing's right. Maybe it's too soon, I don't know, you need discussion. But if a number of board members just totally agree with what you want or what we'd come up with,
Mhm.
then I don't see any reason why you can't put it on the agenda. Or do you think?
I agree, like anything else we bring forward, it's like if the interview committee, right, they bring it forward as a recommendation. So that's what this committee has worked on. And once we get it in that final draft that Jennifer's created, it's the recommendation that this committee is making for the rest of the board to discuss. And we would be open to any discussion that they want to have. But if they read it and they agree, then we would implement it effective Tuesday. So that would be good.
Yeah, that's
Good, that's fine for me too.
Awesome. So thank you. Is there any more discussion? No? Okay. All right. Are there any other such matters that we need to discuss?
No.
No?
no.
Okay. I guess I will need to
A motion to
a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
So moved.
No one can second it, but okay, everyone in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Say adjourned at 5:39.
Good.